Welcome to this month's edition of Portside with the Pilots. I'm your host, Jamie Hudson, and here's what we have in store for you for this month's show. Coming up, a look at the on-court chemistry of Alec Winterian and Jazz Johnson, one of the most prolific scoring backcourts in the country. Also, an in-depth conversation with University of Portland Director of Athletics, Scott Legum.
Finishing first in the Commissioner's Cup in the fall was a huge highlight. We knew we had had a good fall, but to see first place, I think, really validated that thought process.
But first, since the inception of Title IX legislation back in the 1970s, women's athletics on the Bluff has come a long way. The first fully scholarshiped women's student athletes arrived at the University of Portland in 1977, and throughout the many obstacles and challenges that they overcame, they were able to pave the way for today's generation of student athletes at UP and throughout the country.
Title IX was passed in 1972, and it's a federal law addressing discrimination in education. And it wasn't passed with sports in mind. It was really addressing admissions, scholarship, faculty pay, hiring, and it wasn't until probably the 2 or 3 years after it got passed that people really understood the impact it was going to have on college sports and high school sports for women.
Graduated from St. Mary's Academy in 1977 and started in the fall of '77 at University of Portland. Right at the onset of Title IX, it was just coming into legislation. One of the first 3 incoming freshmen to receive athletic scholarships.
As women's sports came on the scene, that was a time that athletic departments had much fewer resources than they do now. So you were adding and almost doubling your programs, which was a great thing for opportunities in women's athletics and in college athletics. But you were doing it without the resources to support the sport you already had.
I think that was a real concern even nationally. Everybody kind of had to walk before they ran, and here was the same situation at the University of Portland. We didn't have a great deal of money altogether in athletics. We did the same thing I think most schools did. We started small and kept building.
That meant new coaches, it meant scholarships, it meant travel budgets, and so a lot of institutions were facing issues with how do you fully implement those, in addition to a lot of legal uncertainty.
We never ever talked about what we were being shorted or how hard it was to finish a volleyball tournament on a Saturday night and then drive all the way back from Idaho or Canada or Northern California all night to get back so they wouldn't have to pay another night's lodging, I'm sure, with the budget they were working with. But we never complained and we never groused, never. That never came out of anyone's mouth. We never knew any different.
It did result in the upgrade of teams from club-like programs, very informal, self-coached, to programs where the students had coaches, had athletic scholarship participation, had the ability to travel. It was not a quick process, but it was a really important step in making that kind of progress for women's sports.
2 practice shirts, that's all you were given. 2 shirts, 2 pair of shorts, and you took care of this on your own as far as laundry. I was down in that laundry room quite a bit down in the basement of Mailing Hall, keeping these things clean.
Back in the early days of Title IX, when it was first passed, college athletics looked a lot different for women. They had one uniform. They were doing their own laundry. It was a uniform that was passed down as opposed to new uniforms every year. They're doing bake sales to have their travel budgets. Their coaches are part-time, maybe they're unpaid.
We just kind of did our own thing. And our coach was not a teacher here. He lived off campus, and so we were basically on our own, just showed up for practices and games.
To look at that model versus the model that our student athletes have today, where they have a full complement of scholarships. They have highly trained coaches who have incredible expertise in their sports.
To start here in 1993, wearing all hats as a part-time coach, and now just the support itself. And we've got the academic support, the mental health support, training room support, the fitness support. I mean, it's just like, wow, it's just exploded. And it provides the opportunity for men and women athletes to be the best that they can be.
It was the Letterman jacket back then. Maybe I didn't wear it then, but I look at it now and it is kind of special to have that. And it was a very, very important time in my life.
This is my UP watch right in the middle. It says UP, it is purple, it's beautiful. It's a wind up. This was before battery operated watches. And you earn this after 4 years of playing a sport here at UP.
It took, I think, a long time, about 20 years, for really the impact of Title IX to show in college athletics. I think that's pretty similar to the timeline we saw here at UP.
Welcome back to Portside with the Pilots. Over the years, the University of Portland has been able to set itself apart in women's athletics, winning multiple national championships and many West Coast Conference titles. Though Title IX was passed in 1972, it didn't affect athletics until 1977. 40 years later, so much has changed for women's athletes, and current student athletes here at UP and throughout the country have many advantages thanks to the trailblazers that were here before them.
With the history of Title IX, and particularly here at UP, we've had some wonderful women's programs over the years. And particularly right now, one of our pillars with all of our sports programs is providing a premier experience for all of our students. And that's something that's at the forefront for us when we look at our men's and our women's programs.
These early pioneer women figuring out, it's really important to them, and they found a way to make it happen. And without kind of that momentum starting, there's no way we would be where we are now in 2017.
I think that the UP athletes today and the young girls who are in athletics are so lucky. They are so lucky to be able to have that freedom, to be able to play any sport that they can now, because when I was little, we were told no.
To have the facilities and training, traveling, some of those advantages are something we didn't have, and I hope they appreciate that. I think we were in the remedial days of that, in the pioneer days, so to speak, the trailblazers in that regard. So I hope they realize that that has come and evolved over a number of years, and I hope they appreciate that.
It's amazing to think of how much change has happened since Title IX was passed in 1972. And one of the great things about this current generation of student athletes that we have here at UP is that they were born and came of age at a time when women's athletics was really prominent. And so it wasn't something that they had to fight for, that they had to struggle for. It's just a part of who they are. It's a part of what our society provides for them. It's an opportunity that everyone has.
Looking at a team in 2017 that is fully funded, with their tuition is all paid for, they're walking out of college debt-free. Everything they have to compete as a student athlete is provided for them. Having a historical perspective makes you appreciate certainly more what you have now than what they did when I was in college, or certainly, when the calendar page turned and Title IX became effective.
The credit goes to Joe Etzel and Larry Williams on this. We were out in front of women's sports early in our conference, and women's soccer, and Clive Charles and Garrett Smith were obviously a really big part of that. I feel like we had a head start. I feel like what happened in women's soccer with what was built by Clive has really helped us craft some of those other programs as well.
Clive Charles has a lot to take credit for on that. I mean, he came to me and said, I think we could make a big impact nationally if we get in to soccer at a higher level before the football playing schools start to do it. And so the soccer program, I think, raised the other women's athletic programs. If they can do it, we can do it. And so I think that we can be very proud of where we are today.
Some of the real visible progress of that has been the success of women's soccer, where that's a program that we fully fund, that we support in all sorts of ways, and we've seen the payoff in that in the performance on the field. Same thing with volleyball. It's a highly supported sport, and we've seen the payoff in that in the team's performance this year.
Joe Etzel and the Buzz Strouds, and even today with Scott Legum, I think we're all pretty fortunate to have men that are really supportive of, regardless of what your gender is, supportive of your success. Those men also helped the momentum moving forward for us.
One of the other things that we've seen in terms of campus impact and athletic department impact is the addition of our rowing program, where that program's in its 5th year. We have 50 or 60 women student athletes competing in that every year, and that's been a really wonderful addition to our athletic department and also to our campus.
Today, I am a Senior Vice President Credit Administrator for Umpqua Bank. It's the largest regional bank in the Pacific Northwest. having been at the University of Portland, when things were certainly not handed to you, where you had to really work and find your way in the athletics. And then the academic program. It was a very strong business school, and it prepared me very well for that transition.
When I graduated from UP, my fate was to become a teacher. I was a 32-year teacher at San Barlow High School in Gresham. While I was teaching in 1993, I found out that you could become a police officer and still keep your day job. So I applied for the Multnomah County Sheriff's Office, and I went through a 9-month academy, and I became a reserve deputy for Multnomah County.
Looking at the student athletes that I've had over the last 5 or 6 years, Jasmine Mouton is going to grad school and coaching in Ireland, and Sarah Griffin and Allison Sievers are coaches at Sunset High School here in town, and there's several more, but it gives women an opportunity in the athletic world.
We had all these women who were willing to sort of struggle through these early years of Title IX and still participate and compete, even though the resources they had weren't the same as some of the men's programs, and they were willing to fight for more. So they were willing to push and say, we want this equality, we want better coaches, we want paid coaches, we want uniforms, we want to be able to play and practice at the same times as the men's teams. And so, those are the women who paved the way for so much of the success that we see now because of the struggle and the fight that they were willing to make.
To come to the University of Portland now, Division I, great conference, great schools, and certainly today the University of Portland would be an amazing step for a high school player. It absolutely would. My advice to players today, what I would offer to them is, you're here because you've earned that right. Try to relax and enjoy the ride.
Back here on Portside, the University of Portland men's basketball backcourt of Alec Wintering and Jazz Johnson have formed one of the most formidable guard duos in the country. Wintering, a senior and a two-time All-WCC point guard, leads the conference with 21 points per game as of January 11th. Johnson, just a sophomore, isn't far behind Alec, adding 17.7 points per contest, which is second on the team and fifth in the league. With conference play just underway, Johnson and Wintering have the Pilots setting their sights high on a strong start in the WCC.
Drives the baseline again, out to the top of the key for Johnson. Three, yes!
Jazz Johnson was one of the most prolific scorers in the state of Oregon as a senior at Lake Oswego High School. Johnson came into the University of Portland in the fall of 2015 as an all-state point guard. But the Pilots already had an established All-West Coast Conference backcourt of Bryce Presley and Alec Wintering.
Playing against Al every day really made me a better player. Just the consistency he had. Every practice he'd come in and try to make people better. He'd always perform well, and it obviously would show in the games.
When Jazz was in high school, he used to come to play open gym all the time. We all knew he could play. We knew he had the ability to score like he does. And just his freshman year, he always did a good job of asking questions to me or Bryce and just trying to learn the game better.
Being the backup point guard meant Jazz spent a lot of time guarding Alec at practice during Johnson's freshman year. Looking back, those battles may have been intense, but are what helped the on-court chemistry develop between Alec and Jazz.
Knowing that if I go hard, he's going to have to go hard too. So it's just really wanting the best for each other.
Yeah, so it wasn't frustrating. That's what you have to do, right?
This is what you have to do. It's just a good relationship to have, being able to have someone who's there to, push your buttons at times, but definitely it's all out of love and wanting the best for each other.
Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum, some of the best of friends, but they are battling each other on the court. I know, though, Al, you have called Jazz maybe your little brother. Is that kind of the relationship you guys have right now?
I mean, definitely. He's always been the guy to be around, ask me questions, just how I've come along in my career here. I'm always there for him.
Now, halfway through the 2016-2017 season, they are one of the most dynamic backcourts in the country. Through January 11th, Alec and Jazz have accounted for over 50% of the team's overall points per game, and they're showing no signs of slowing down.
When he drives the paint, it seems like he either looks the strong side where he's looking, or I'll either follow behind him because he does a lot of spinning around and looking behind him, and I just kind of know like his kind of moves so I can fill in that spot to be open.
Under first-year UP men's basketball head coach Terry Porter, the Pilots' dynamic duo has been able to thrive in an NBA-style offense. Porter, a 17-year NBA veteran, recognizes the importance of having a strong backcourt, and the staff has been able to put Alec and Jazz in positions to succeed.
We provided that type of offensive system for them to have the type of opportunities, and they've been able to really take it and go out and execute it really well. And so we're very excited about what we've done up to this point, but going forward in regards to the ability to continue to have that type of success and help our team.
I've learned a lot within the pick and roll game that I didn't really know. He knows a lot of the nuances from him playing in the NBA. A lot of change of speed stuff that I need to work on. He's really been on me about just little stuff like that.
For you, Alec, this isn't your first time playing for an NBA coach, your high school coach, Muggsy Bogues. How much has their NBA influence helped you in your career?
They're a really big help. Muggsy in high school, he did the best job with me, him being a smaller guard. Just finding different ways to create for myself, if that's shots off the dribble or just looking to be aggressive in the paint. And then with Coach Porter, he's done a great job with us, teaching us the pick and roll and what to look for and how to slow down the game just to make everything come easier for us.
In just a few months, you'll be graduating from the University of Portland. Are you ready, though, to pass the torch on to Jazz at the end of the season?
Definitely. I mean, that's why I'm so open and trying to help him out because I know I'm only going to be here for a little while longer, and after that is his go. So I'm just trying to do as much as I can to make the process for him easier and just allow him to be successful.
I've actually been really watching a lot of film and watching how Al plays and see how he creates, because I know next year I'm not going to be playing the two, I'm going to have to play the one. So I have to be able to balance out my ability to score as well as creating for others.
Well, obviously you guys are such a great duo in the WCC, we know that. But looking maybe next level, you guys kind of talk about another duo that you could compare yourself to in the NBA?
I mean, being in Portland, having a great NBA duo like CJ McCollum and Damian Lillard, it's definitely come up between us, which kind of jokingly, yeah, Dame and CJ time. But yeah, they're definitely fun to watch, and obviously both of us carrying such a load on the team is kind of just in the conversation of being, those type of players for our team.
Yeah, well, it's Alec and Jazz time. I like it. Welcome back to Portside with the Pilots. We're now joined by University of Portland Director of Athletics, Scott Legum. Thanks for joining us today, Scott. I appreciate it.
Nice to see you again, Jamie.
Good to see you too. Now, the University of Portland is coming off one of its most successful falls ever, Scott. For you, what were some of the highlights?
Finishing first in the Commissioner's Cup in the fall was a huge highlight. We knew we had a good fall, but to see first place, I think, really validated that thought process. For us to have 3 Coaches of the Year, in Ian Soloff and Nick Carlin-Voigt and Brent Crouch, that was a huge validation for us as well. To have the men's soccer success, to win that men's soccer conference title was crucial for us. For women's cross country to make NCAAs for the first time, that was a great event for the student athletes and the coaching staff. To see that volleyball progression continue to come. And for me, this business is about personal relationships, and to see those volleyball student athletes go from 0-27 as freshmen to the top 3 in the league as seniors, that's why we're in the business.
And 2 of those WCC Coaches of the Year that you mentioned, Scott, were hired within the last few years. What is the process for hiring new coaches, and why have you been so successful with the recent coaching hires?
Jamie, I think it's all luck. I think you talk to any athletic director in the WCC or in the country, the first thing you have to look at is fit. And these small private institutions, it takes a certain kind of fit. You're really drilling down into references, who those people worked for, who they coached, who their relationships are, what the coaching tree is. It's that person you think that fits and can build something special on your campus.
You talk about smaller schools. Well, this day and age, with the NCAA providing more assistance towards student athlete welfare, how does that impact smaller athletic departments like UP with so many of the Big 5 schools able to spend so freely?
Any dollar counts. It really, really does. Even in this day and age of having a $16, $17 million budget, any dollar counts. And I think 2 places, and it's a great question, Jamie. One is the NCAA is starting to pay out academic money here soon. So based on your program's academic success, there will be payouts and distributions from the NCAA based on that. For an institution like ours and a conference like ours, that will be a really big benefit. The other thing is the Student Athlete Opportunity Fund. I think that not many people know about. Everybody gets it. I think it's a higher impact for a school like ours that can help with career preparation, job interviews. You can buy a student athlete a suit for that first interview. If a student athlete has a family emergency, you can send them home. You can house the parents here. That's one of those things that the NCAA does that really has an impact on a big level.
What are some areas that we have invested in to kind of set ourselves apart from other WCC schools?
I think the facility race is a big one. And as much as there's a lot of collegiality in the room with the WCC, we're all looking to sort of build better. I think where we're sitting now, having a dedicated practice facility for our basketball and volleyball programs has made a huge difference. Investing in our strength and conditioning program, we're about to add another full-time coach. That new facility, we're hearing from our coaches and student athletes that that's made a huge impact. Lastly, and we're really seeing the benefits, we finished a academic center up on the Child Center in the mezzanine, a dedicated tutoring academic resource center. We've added 2 academic counselors in the last 18 months. So I think for us, the impact we've made in the practice facility world, strength and conditioning, bigger, faster, stronger, and the academic space have all been big impacts for us.
And looking ahead, what do you see is on the horizon for the University of Portland athletics, and what do you think is going to make the biggest impact?
The next frontier, and gosh, we've talked about it since I've been here, is the river property. There are plans in place to potentially have a soccer practice facility on the river by next summer, as well as a new boathouse. Most of my time right now is logistics and working with architects. I'd say that's 50% of my job, and what the river looks like and how quickly we can execute that.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Scott.
Thank you, Jamie. Good to have you here.
And thank you guys for joining us on this episode of Portside with the Pilots. We'll see you next month.